So I normally don't really talk about VTuber drama, but I kind of felt like this instance was kind of like a unique situation considering that I believe that Sinder was one of the more top independent VTuber creators that was out there, and it seemed like a pretty like big situation that ended up happening. And I'm not gonna go into like every single Google document that was released by Nanolist, who originally started this whole thing with her series of evidence and documentation of her experience with Sinder and Cinder's manager, who was later revealed to also be her boyfriend. So that actually kind of contributes a lot as to what people were talking about later on, like after she had responded. Bao also released a response. Silvervale at one point, I think, also released a response. A few others, I think Spite, another VTuber, also responded as well. And then, of course, there is the apology that Cinder actually ended up making. And if you want to see someone talk about or reading through the response that Cinder had made, Omni actually recently just uploaded a video talking about it or reading through it and giving his opinions throughout. And if you want to see that, I would highly recommend to go and do so. It's like about 45-ish minutes long. It goes over everything pretty much, but I pretty much want to only really give like a TLDR sort of thing. And pretty much what had happened was that a VTuber artist known as Nanolist, they work specifically for VTubers and they create models for VTubers and outfits for VTubers, and they were known for working with Cinder, for Bao, and a few other artists or creators out there. And they came out and they were pretty much talking about a lot of manipulation and slander that was going around, where sometimes Red, who goes by Redacted, would sometimes mention how there was a lot of things going on with other content creators, trying to make them seem like that they were like worse than they actually are, to try to convince Nano to actually stop working for those creators and to stop trying to do commissions for them. And that actually goes further into what was actually going on with Bao, and during her document, her Google document, she talked about how she actually had one of her commissions by Nano actually get dismissed entirely because of the fact that Red the entire time was feeding Nano a whole bunch of information that just straight up just wasn't true, trying to make Bao and a bunch of other creators. I think Cottontail was another VTuber creator who was also affected by this. A bunch of people were, honestly. They were trying to make them seem like that they were much worse than they actually are, that they were riddled with drama, they're very like questionable and problematic, and trying to convince them to stop working with them, which also coincides with how Red and Cinder were constantly trying to pressure Nano to specifically working for them specifically. And as far as I can tell, from what I can guess from reading everything and having everything listed out for me, it seems like that Cinder wasn't really trying to compensate for the loss of revenue that Nano would have gotten if they just continued working with other VTuber creators. And obviously going exclusive with a certain VTuber or creator or whoever isn't necessarily a bad thing, but what is bad is when you don't actually compensate them appropriately for the work that they're doing. And as far as I can tell, that doesn't actually seem to be the case. There are a whole bunch of screenshots from Discord and a whole bunch of conversations that happened between Nano and Red and Cinder, respectively, and a whole bunch of stuff was said, and Bao had responded to it, basically confirming that one of the projects that Nano was working on was canceled because of supposed mental health at the time, and that's what the excuse that was given, but then it was revealed later on to have been due to Redacted's interference. Bao also accused Cinder of bad-mouthing her, which Cinder and Red have done multiple times, disrespecting them and making claims about them that just weren't true, whilst also talking about how she had gotten mad about apparently stealing an editor. So Cinder had made like a Boss Rush like music video at one point, and the editor for that video was apparently quote unquote stolen and was then only exclusively working for Bao. But the truth is that they had chosen of their own fruition to work exclusively with Bao, and Bao provides a screenshot of that conversation between the two of them, where the editor that had previously worked for Cinder decided to only work specifically for Bao. And Spite and Silvervale were mentioned a couple other times. Moving forward a little bit, they were mentioned a couple of times, and they really only specifically started talking about the comparisons between the VTuber models and outfits that Spite and Cinder respectively had. Cinder would later on have another model and another outfit that was very similar to theirs, and they received a lot of hate for it, for trying to copy Cinder, even though they did it first and even though they didn't deserve it, because no one owns like a Fox Girl like VTuber model. Like that just wasn't necessary. They didn't deserve the hate that they had received for having models that were explicitly like kind of similar to one another. And even then, it's like if models are similar to one another in a specific way, whether it be like an outfit or like a specific attribute of the character design, I don't think a model or a VTuber should specifically own that. But whether or not Cinder was actually trying to intentionally copy them or not is hard to prove. But they are there, and a lot of people see this as Cinder trying to copy these other creators who had done it first, which, you know, that is something else that you can criticize of Cinder. Van Peaches was also the person who had came out and said that Red Redacted was Cinder's boyfriend, and it was because it was revealed years before that she had a boyfriend at the time. And then at TwitchCon, she had said that her manager was also coming along with her during the trip, and it just doesn't really make a whole bunch of sense. It kind of just, it coincides with one another, and it collides with information that had already previously existed. And I think at one point during like Cinder's apology, she apologized to someone. I think their name was like Rain. And apparently, like, this Rain person was someone that Cinder had used to cheat on her boyfriend with before in the past. I'm not going to get into that because I don't think that's really, like, the most important detail. I'm just mentioning that because I was in a friend's stream, and the only thing that I got out of talking with some people in the chat was she f***ed over a lot of other creators, and she cheated on her boyfriend. And that's basically all I saw, and I thought it was kind of funny, but that's besides the point. Cinder had initially responded saying that she would eventually end up making a response later on, but that her manager no longer represents her as a creator, a brand, or her intentions. So her boyfriend no longer works for her, but then she eventually would release a Google document herself, and she would respond to everything that was made, all of the claims that were made against her. And TLDR, it was really bad. The biggest takeaway to take from Cinder's apology is that it's not very good. It's really, really bad. And the reason why it's bad is because she spends the entire document trying to deflect blame from herself and any actions that she committed or anything that she said over to her manager boyfriend. And then she continues to keep gaslighting and manipulating people into trying to feel sympathy for her and to try to get people to believe that she didn't intentionally try to do this, or that she had no involvement in anything that was going on, or just wasn't even aware of what was even going on with the behind the scenes stuff that was going on with her boyfriend manager. But as we all know, spouses like to tell each other a lot of things about what they're doing in their business life. It's just what they do. And considering that her boyfriend is her manager and she's so closely related to her business, it seems to make sense that he would want to tell her a lot of things that are going on behind the scenes and what he's telling other people to go do. And it would also make sense that she would try to tell her manager, who's also her boyfriend, to go and say some stuff to certain people in a certain way to try to get them to do things that she wants them to do. Not to say that that is what she was trying to do, or that is what she has been doing, but it's all very likely and possible, right? It's plausible that that is something that could have potentially happened. There's definitely way more information that we probably don't even know, because some information is just worth keeping away from the public light because it's so personal and private, which makes sense. But the biggest takeaway other than that as well is the fact that people went and started responding to her tweet that had the Google Doc, and people hate it. Like, one of the VTubers I remember specifically like responding to it was Shy Lily, and she went off. Like, she had a full-on like crash out moment against this response to the drama that was going on. Not really drama, but this whole situation revolving around Cinder. And it was like, she just said a lot of things that just made sense, and just, it was a valid crash out to say the least. But it wasn't even just her, it was a bunch of other creators that were saying a bunch of stuff in the replies, and people don't trust her, they don't believe her, they have just lost all good faith in everything that she has to say and every single thing that has to involve her behavior, and they lost a lot of trust, and for good reason, right? A lot of people have lost a lot of trust with Cinder, and it's really upsetting for a lot of people, because especially for specific creators like Bao, for an example, who literally went on a stream and started crying. Like, she broke down and started crying profusely because she truly believed that they were friends and that they could trust each other, they could talk to each other and be with one another and truly be best of friends. But behind the scenes, Cinder just was not that way. She was not reciprocating behind the scenes. She would always constantly talk badly about people that were supposed to be her friends. But I don't really know what else to say other than that. This is just a really bad apology. She deflects, she gaslights, she manipulates, and it was not a very good apology. And as you can see from replies that are on the tweet itself, for if you want to go look for yourself, people don't believe her, and like I said, it's for very good reasons. So that's honestly really all I have to say about the situation as a whole. There's not really much else to say other than that. I don't think there's going to be anything else coming out in the near future, and if there is, maybe I'll talk about it, maybe I'll make an update video about it, but there's going to be plenty of other people doing that themselves, and I think you should just go and look for the appropriate channels that are doing that. And it sucks. The people that I feel bad for the most are the people that were so heavily affected the most from it, and it seems to be the people who were specifically mentioned in Nanolis's initial tweet talking about the situation, which was Bao, which was Shy Lily, which was Silvervale and Spite, and a whole bunch of other VTubers. A lot of people trusted her, and now that trust no longer exists. So yeah, that's pretty much it though. I don't have much else to say other than that. Very sad situation for the VTuber community as a whole. A lot of fans have been going through a lot of stuff emotionally, and I feel bad for them. I can feel empathy for them, even though this didn't really affect me all too much because I'm not really that into the VTuber industry or just community in general, because I just don't really watch too many VTubers, although I do respect them as content creators, and this sucks. So yeah, that's pretty much it. If you liked the video, be sure to leave a like. If you want to see more, please be sure to subscribe. I'll see you guys in the next one. I also want to give a thanks and a shout out to Renegade Enigma for being a member. But yeah, that's pretty much it. I'll see you guys in the next one. I'm out. Peace.